Imagine a young American woman, born and raised in the United States, a college student about to graduate. She doesn't believe in abortion and holds a strong personal ethic of responsibility. On a school trip to Canada, something unimaginable happens. She's sexually assaulted while unconscious. She doesn't even realize she's pregnant until midway through the second trimester. Still, she makes the decision to keep the child and raise it herself. Under current law, her child is a United States citizen. Born on American soil to an American mother, there is no question of belonging or legal status. The Constitution, through the 14th Amendment, guarantees that birthright citizenship is not conditional on the circumstances of conception, the marital status of the parents, or the identity of the father. But under the 2025 executive order issued by President Trump, currently blocked but still unresolved, the child in this scenario would not automatically receive U.S. citizenship. According to the order's language, unless the father is a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, the child is ineligible for birthright citizenship. The mother's citizenship alone is not considered sufficient. This creates a horrifying possibility. A child born in the United States to a U.S. citizen mother could be denied citizenship because of the status or even the absence of the father. It opens the door to stateless children, forced deportations, and the stripping of constitutional protections from the most vulnerable among us. This is not just a legal overreach, it is a moral failure. It punishes survivors. It undermines the autonomy of women. It resurrects a patriarchal system in which a child's legal identity flows only through the father, reducing motherhood to a legal technicality. This scenario is not abstract. It's not exaggerated. It is the natural conclusion of a policy that redefines citizenship not by place of birth or constitutional principle, but by political preference and ancestral approval. If a U.S. citizen mother is no longer enough to confer citizenship on her own child born on U.S. soil, then the Constitution is no longer the highest law in the land. Executive ideology is. And that is a line no democracy can afford to cross. Now consider a different case. A young German woman comes to the United States on a student visa. While here, she enters into a relationship with an American man, someone with legal status, but a violent past. He is affiliated with a known gang and has a history of domestic abuse. During the course of their relationship, he controls her, isolates her, and physically assaults her. Eventually, she becomes pregnant. Fearing for her safety and the safety of her unborn child, she tries to leave him, but she is undocumented now, having overstayed her visa. She can't return home easily, and she has no legal standing to stay. Still, she finds refuge, gives birth in a women's shelter, and begins to rebuild her life. Under the current understanding of the Constitution, her baby is a U.S. citizen. The child was born on U.S. soil. The parent's immigration status does not change that. The law recognizes that the child's future is not tied to the father's violence or the mother's legal paperwork, but to the fact that they were born within the jurisdiction of the United States. Under the executive order, however, everything changes. The child's right to citizenship now hinges on whether the father, a violent, abusive man, is a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. And in this case, he is. So, the child receives citizenship. But here's the catch. The mother is undocumented. She has no rights to stay. The executive order doesn't give her any new protections. In fact, it could increase her risk of deportation. So now, the government has created a situation where an American citizen child may be forcibly separated from their mother and placed, whether through custody, foster care, or manipulation, into the hands of an abusive man. This is not just a policy failure. It's a blueprint for exploitation. When the law centers the father's status and erases the mother's, it empowers abusers. It provides an incentive for control. It makes motherhood legally invisible and morally irrelevant in the eyes of the state. If a violent man's citizenship can secure rights for his child, but a responsible woman's citizenship or victimization cannot, then the executive order doesn't just rewrite immigration policy. It rewrites who counts as human. In this scenario, the father's abuse is legally irrelevant. His status gives the child rights. The mother's trauma, character, intentions, and well-being are all secondary to one thing: her lack of citizenship. This is what happens when ideology replaces justice, when power determines personhood, and when the role of mother is reduced to a temporary vessel, erased as soon as the child draws breath. No civilized society should enshrine that kind of hierarchy into law. Imagine a man living in the United States, an American citizen, who participates in an international matchmaking service to find a foreign bride. He connects with a woman from the Philippines, Ukraine, or Thailand, countries commonly targeted in these arrangements. She comes to the U.S. on a K-1 fiancé visa, marries him, and becomes financially and legally dependent on him while she awaits adjustment of status. Over time, she realizes the relationship is not what it seemed. He is controlling, emotionally abusive, possibly physically threatening. Her immigration process is tangled in delays, and she is now trapped between remaining with him or risking removal proceedings if she leaves. During this time, she becomes pregnant. When the child is born on U.S. soil, under the Constitution, that child is a U.S. citizen. Regardless of the mother's visa status, the child's rights are clear and protected. But under the executive order, the dynamic shifts in dangerous ways. The child receives U.S. citizenship solely because the father is a citizen. The mother's presence, situation, and well-being are legally disregarded. She may still be in the country under precarious circumstances, or she may be deported if she tries to leave him and loses her immigration status. The father now has the power to claim full rights over the child due to his citizenship status. Use the child as leverage to force the mother to remain in the relationship. Threaten to take the child away if she attempts to leave or report abuse. Influence or control the child's legal future while the mother becomes legally disposable. He could decide, arbitrarily, cruelly, selfishly, that she no longer serves his desires. That now that she's given birth, her body no longer pleases him. Maybe she gained weight. Maybe she has stretch marks. Maybe she's exhausted from caring for a newborn without help. Maybe she's just not docile enough now that her usefulness, in his eyes, has expired. And under this executive order, he holds all the power. The child's citizenship flows through him. Her immigration status may be tied to him. Her future in the country and her access to her own child may now rest on whether he chooses to support her, acknowledge her, or discard her. She could be deported, even as the mother of a U.S. citizen child. Stripped of custody if he claims the child as his and she lacks legal standing. Erased from the legal narrative, even though she is the one who carried, birthed, and cared for the child. All because a man decides she's too fat, or not submissive enough, or no longer convenient. And this isn't hypothetical. It's a known pattern. In exploitative marriages, especially ones tied to immigration, women are regularly threatened with deportation, forced to remain in abusive households, and denied access to their children as a means of control. What this executive order does is hand abusers a powerful new tool. It gives legal weight to the idea that a woman's value as a mother, as a human, and as a contributor to society is less than the citizenship status of the man who impregnated her. It is not only unconstitutional, it is profoundly anti-woman. It sends a clear, chilling message. You may give birth in America. You may raise your child here. But unless a man approves of you, unless he's the right kind of man, you don't count. This is not a far-fetched scenario. It is one that women's rights groups, immigration advocates, and international watchdogs have warned about for decades. The vulnerability of women in dependency-based immigration systems, especially in cases involving marriage. What this executive order does is codify that vulnerability into law. It says that the father's citizenship, not the child's birth on American soil, not the mother's status as a caregiver or survivor, determines the child's legal rights. And it hands disproportionate power to men, especially those who would exploit women in compromised situations. It creates a pathway where a man can essentially purchase the right to produce an American citizen, while the woman who carries, births, and raises that child is left in legal limbo. This is not about citizenship. It is about control. It reinforces a hierarchy where women are viewed as secondary, conditional, or replaceable. It undermines the Constitution's guarantee that every child born in the United States is equal under the law. In doing so, it makes motherhood a loophole and fatherhood a gatekeeper, not by moral merit or parental involvement, but by legal status alone. That's not justice. That's a system built to serve the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. And history has shown us where that road leads. That's not policy. That's ownership. And it has no place in a free nation.